the legend, finally in the flesh after months, Mr. Coy Watson.
Glad to be here, man.
How's it going?
Yeah, thanks for the invite. It's going well, yeah.
What you got going on, man?
Oh, a lot, yeah. So we're in the studio now recording another record, and it's another solo record, so I'm excited about that, yeah.
Good.
And so always writing and recording, and brought some stuff that we've done in the past for you guys to check out.
Yeah, I've heard this one. That's one of my favorites, too.
Yeah, that's actually, Come Alive is the only live record I've ever done. And that was such a great night. Just the energy was just incredible.
It was.
Were you there for that?
Around that time, yeah. That's when I was there.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun doing that record.
And then you have the follow-up,
Well, that's actually the first one I
Love
did.
Is,
This solo record I did, Love Is Spoken. Did that many years ago. And man, I still get requests from that. There's a song I wrote called Resting in Your Peace.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about it when I wrote the song about, it being played for funerals, but it gets it gets so many requests for funerals at our church and many other places. And so Resting in Your Peace, that's actually my wife's favorite song I've ever written.
Oh.
Yeah, so.
Peggy likes that one.
Yeah, she does.
Are you still at Crossroads, or are you?
I'm still at Crossroads. I was the music director there for 24 years, and I've actually just stepped down. So I'm not obligated to be there every single weekend.
Yeah.
I started a band called Nation Band, and this is our latest record, Nation Band. And you can actually find this on iTunes.
iTunes, check him out.
And so, the goal is really to get out beyond the four walls of that building and do some playing and some touring. And I look forward to doing a lot of that.
Who you have in this Nation Band?
Well, it varies. On that particular record, Hunter Blake actually sings a few songs, but he's got his own thing going, and I think he might even be in talks for a record deal. So the team members are going to flux in. I got Donnie Bolden. Jane Launchier sang a few songs on that one. And so it's an amalgamation of different vocalists that I really love. And had such a great time. It was a lot of work putting that record together. It's a very modern record, a very pop-oriented modern worship record. And so, yeah, you can find that on iTunes and check it out. Give me some feedback.
I see this guy, Richard Gaspard.
Richard Gaspard, yeah. He did some work on that with us, played some bass on a few tracks. And you might know Timmy Corville. Timmy Corville did quite a bit of drum playing on that one. Mike Birch did, I think, 3 or 4 songs on that record. And so, yeah, had some great players, great singers. And it's fun to produce a record when you've got that much talent to work with. And
makes it easy, too.
Absolutely.
Makes it really easy.
Corinne Hawthorne, actually, she's not on this record, but I don't know if you are familiar with Corinne, but she was, I think, finished 4th on The Voice several seasons ago. And she's going to be touring this summer with Kirk Franklin. And so she was in Nation Band doing some stuff with us, and may in the future do some things that when her schedule permits. So a lot of folks. Yeah, from Abbeville.
Come on.
Yeah.
Oh man, you should let's get her on the show.
She was actually nominated for a Grammy this year.
Come on.
She's won a couple of stellar awards, and so her career is really taken off. So she's been a lot of fun to work with. And when we debuted this record, she was with us that night.
Yeah.
To perform and release it. So.
Oh, well, you need to send me all this information.
Yes, I need to, right?
Loop,
yeah.
Since we can get this out there to everybody. So did y'all record this one at your place?
At my place, yeah.
You recorded. Tell us about your studio.
So my studio is a little bigger than 2,000 square foot. It's 2 stories. 1 story is a loft, and so the live room is pretty big. Which, anytime you're building a studio, you're not really sure how drums are going to sound in it until you get them in there and you hear it. And I was just ecstatic. The room sounds amazing. And so we got some great sounds. Had a great engineer mix it with us, and yeah, just very, very pleased. I think sonically, I'm most pleased with how that record came out. Yeah.
Awesome.
So the studio is fun, man. It's great. It's nice to have my own space. We're kind of in the boondocks in Karen Crow, so there's a lot of quiet out there, so we can make as much noise as we want. Record, any time that we want.
Yeah.
So it's fun. Having a great time with it.
Is it open for commercial? I mean, for other groups,
No,
or
I
it's just
haven't.
more personal?
Yeah, I'm in there all the time.
Yeah.
And so I haven't really opened it for other players or artists to come in.
Yeah.
So from time to time, friends who need some vocal work done or
Yeah.
want my help doing some production on a few things,
Mm-hmm.
I'll do that. But
Awesome. Awesome.
but not commercially, no.
Yeah. So how'd you get started playing?
Well, I don't really have anyone in my family who was musical. I think like maybe a great uncle who was a classical pianist in New York. Outside of that, my immediate family, there's no one that is a musician. But I always gravitated to music. I remember, being 5 years old, begging my mom for guitar lessons. So she put me in guitar lessons, and so started playing when I was 5. I remember doing my lessons in front of this old upright piano, and being 5 years old, the fingers just can't do all the positions, and those strings really tore up my little 5-year-old fingers. And so, I would restring my guitar with nylon strings and learn that way. But I got real interested in the piano that was positioned right in front of us. And so when I was 7, I started piano lessons.
Yeah.
And I'm really more of a piano player today than I'm a guitar player. Piano, writing, I prefer to write from guitar because rhythmically there's different melodies and things that come out with the strumming
Totally
that
understand.
I prefer than piano. But, ballads, things of that nature, even some modern pop songs, I'll write from piano. Piano is my main instrument. In high school, I got into playing trumpet, or I guess it would be in 6th grade. I started playing trumpet and really, really dove into that instrument, into horns. Studied music at Kansas State University. I had a scholarship to study there, full scholarship. So it was the only school that would give me full out-of-state scholarship. So I wanted to get out of state. I went to K-State, and they had a great music conservatory there. Just learned so much. Was just, eating, drinking, and sleeping music for years and years and years, 24/7. And, just learned a lot. It was about that time, really, where, software-based music was kind of coming into its own.
Yeah.
And so, I've always been interested in recording. When I was like 10 years old, I didn't have any means of recording. So I had a dual cassette player. So what I would do is I would record from my keyboard onto one and then drop it into the other side and then record another track on that and then pop it back in the other side and record a track on that. So I could make a little song. It sounded horrible because it was so noisy. But, it was the only way I could do it. So then I got a 4-track recorder, and then I was in business, And then, recording little songs and junior high and high school. And so that's kind of how I started with recording. And then when I was in college, actually before I went to college, I guess I was 18, I met some friends who had a recording studio and began writing. I remember, you guys know Greg Martinez. I remember writing several songs for him.
Greg who?
Martinez. You know Greg Martinez?
I might know that fella. I might know that fella.
So I wrote several songs for him. I think he recorded a couple of mine way back in the day. I was only 18 years old, but they had requested I do some writing. And so then they had other artists coming in the studio who were country, doing different styles, and I would write. So I kind of cut my teeth on, studio chops, learning software, writing for different kind of artists and learning different styles. It was fun, So I went off to college. Back then, being a software musician you didn't do that. I mean, software was kind of the genesis of that kind of recording. So you were still required to be a legit musician, right? You still had to play an instrument. There was not all of this editing and all of this, you could overdub, but you had to play. And so, back in the day, that was good because, you could really work on your chops and become a good player.
We talk about that a lot on here, and that's what we say. If you're coming on the show, you got to play an instrument.
Yeah.
Coy wasn't prepared to play for us today, but maybe we'll have him come back.
Yeah, I'd love to.
And do some stuff. Or we'll go out to his studio, and we'll shoot another episode.
That would be fun.
Yeah. And get Coy to play a little bit for us. But we are going to put some of the songs he has. You'll hear them in the intros, outros, the normal stuff, you know. But yeah, I totally understand about the electronics playing a part coming into music, and we talked about. I think Red Glenmeyer and I had talked extensively about it on that episode. About how
I mean, I love it today because, I mean, you know, you can have a legit studio with you don't have to spend $1 million to get that, you know.
Yeah.
And then the production with software instrumentation and everything else is just really amazing what you can do today. I wish I had that when I was 18 years old. That would have been fun.
It is. It is. I just think it takes away from some things. I like to see, you know, real musicians playing, you know. I think it's really good as a writing tool, you know, and to put things together. But, you know, when
nothing replaces that.
When you cut stuff, you can tell. I have a friend of mine that challenged me one time, and he came over and he had some tracks, and he goes, all right, on these tracks, he goes, one track, he had 9 tracks. He goes, one of these tracks has a real drummer on it. The rest of it isn't. And he said, and one of these tracks has a real string player on it, and the rest of them don't. You tell me which ones. And I listened to it, and I got both of them the first time.
Oh, that's great.
I was like, that's a real drummer. And he was like, how did you know that? You know, I was like, you just know. You know, I mean, if you do it a lot, you know.
Well, I've done both. Like on my solo record, there's a song that I wrote that has some live strings on it. Yeah. And I, you know, scored it out, conducted them, and it was so much fun to conduct. You know, it's like a mini. I guess it was probably a quartet, and we overdubbed it. I want to say like 8 times, and just got this monstrous string sound. It was just awesome. So you know, there's some things you can do live that it's just you can't replace that with software.
It is, and there's you know, there's a lot of cool gadgets out today that'll try and make a lot of electronic stuff sound, you know, analog. Yeah, you know, but it doesn't quite do it when you look at that stuff on there. A lot of analyzation equipment is still.
Like case in point, you know, a B3.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just there's no software instrument going to come close. You can mimic it, but it's just there's nothing that's ever going to replace a live B3.
I did a record for Kenny Fife and Backtrack years back when I had my studio in Gonzales, and Jerry was a keyboard player. I remember Jerry, we came in and they did their initial rough tracks. They did a remake of Whiter Shade of Pale.
Yeah.
And when we went to mix it down, you know, or I thought we were going to mix it down. This one particular night, got to the studio, and Jerry pulls up with his trailer, and he starts unloading equipment. I was like, well, what are you doing? He goes, well, we're not keeping that keyboard track. That was just for the guys to guide off of, kind of thing. So I said, well, what are you doing? You know, so I go look at it, and he pulled out a B3, and he brought in a almost as big as this table, a Leslie cabinet, a real Leslie. He goes, we're going to use this, you know.
Yeah.
And it was big difference in you know, because he had a Leslie mimicked on his
It's interesting you bring up Whiter Shade of Pale, because there was a song, matter of fact, Richard Gaspard and I were working on many years ago, and I wanted to get the Leslie to slow down, to kind of wah. Yeah. So we decided what we're going to do is just put a dimmer pack on the Leslie, and it worked for about 10 seconds, and then we fried the Leslie.
Oh wow! Wow.
So the motor had to be completely changed.
Yeah. Well, I remember Jerry used to rebuild them. He would do and he'd rebuild pianos and stuff too, if I remember correctly, but. He had like several at his house, and he would take parts, and this one was, you know, he left at the studio, I remember, for about a month, you know, and we even messed with it, played with it, did some things. We even ran some guitar stuff.
I have an old B3 in my studio, and I love it.
It's cool stuff, man. It's cool. So other than just going into music, though, what really grabbed you, or what were your influences more?
Man, influences, oh my goodness. You know, I grew up, I cut my teeth on you know, Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, you know, all of the old rock bands. And I drove my parents insane with all that music, learning all that stuff. So that was the, you know, the genesis. But, you know, I'm not ashamed to say that I listen to everything. back in the day. You know, I liked, loved the Beatles. You know, loved, you know, bands like REO Speedwagon and all the pop music of that time.
Yeah.
You know, the Bee Gees. If you listen to that music, oh my gosh, it's just chord-wise, it's palatial. It's just awesome.
Yeah.
So I got into everything. My palate was large, and I just soaked it all up. Yeah. My mother loved Elvis, and so when I was 5, I was just learning guitar, and that was the very first song I learned. It was called Orally.
Yeah.
But it got you know, developed into Love Me Tender.
Yeah.
So I learned Orally on guitar, and my first live performance, we were at a camp, and I will never forget it because my mother said, "Hey, Coy, I want you to play that song you learned."
Yeah.
And I was petrified, you know, I was just a 5-year-old kid playing Orally, Love Me Tender.
Yeah.
And so I got my first applause right there around the fire.
And you were hooked.
I was hooked. I was hooked. Actually, I was hooked before that because I could remember, now this is 75. I can remember my dad walking me down the street to this legitimate garage band. And they were playing Smoke on the Water.
Wow.
And so my dad walks me into the group and introduces me. And I can remember the drummer sitting me on his lap, you know, taking my hands in his hands and just playing the groove, you know. I'm going, man, I'm digging this. So that was my intro to music.
Oh,
yeah, right there awesome. In 1975 in a legit garage band.
Yeah.
Playing Smoke on the Water.
And Smoke on the Water. Speaking of that, you know, the show's recorded live. If you watch the other episodes, you know that. You're going to hear Benny barking in a little while. You're going to hear cars passing and people walking in and out. But just ignore it or let it be part of it. But anyway, how'd your faith play a role in as you grew and matured? And
yeah, man, my journey was an interesting one because, you know, I grew up, I guess for lack of a better term, a little heathen kid. You know, we religion was not a big part of our family growing up. My dad was an alcoholic, and early in my life, he was a violent alcoholic, and so our home life was just tumultuous. It was just crazy. So music really was kind of an escape for me.
Yeah.
You know, just diving into music to kind of forget the drama of the family and all of the mess we were going through. So that was an escape for me. You know, so coming out of that turmoil as a young person in a kind of a broken family, I got into drugs, got into, you know, every bad scene you can imagine. And it was only, I think, by God's grace that he put people in my life to kind of direct me out of that. You know, friends that really were kind of participating in that lifestyle, but knew of faith before that. They were kind of like what we call a backslidden Christian, you know, kind of participating in that activity with me, but they would speak truth, and we would, you know, we'd get stoned and talk about the Bible and have debates about it. And so little by little, I think God was kind of tugging on my heart, pulling me to himself. And, you know, when I was 15, that was the first time I really kind of got down on my knees and said, you know, God, I want you in my life. I want you to be part of my life. And, you know, not everything changed at that point. To me, Christianity was an evolution. It was baby steps toward God. It was really probably when I was in my early 20s that I really dedicated myself and my music to God. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's how it happened for me.
Is there any local musicians that stick out in your mind that influenced you in any kind of way?
Well, a certain friend told me to say Tony Gula. That you would get a kick out of that. Apparently, everybody says that when they come on the show.
Everybody.
But Tony's a great friend of mine. We played together for many, many years, and he's such a great talent, great friend.
Yeah. And
I love that dude. And we've talked about, we've done some writing in the past a little bit. We talked about doing a little bit more of that. I think if, you know, I love playing piano. I love playing guitar. I think I'm an excellent piano player. I'm a good guitar player. My real talent is songwriting.
Yeah.
That's what my real talent is.
Awesome.
I love crafting a song.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so much fun to me. I get so much enjoyment out of it. Some songs come very easy.
Yeah.
Like I wrote a song, and this is actually on YouTube. It's a song that I wrote after the shootings in Lafayette, the theater shooting.
Yeah.
And I wrote that song the very night after that happened in one sitting. I think I wrote it in like 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I got all of my friends together. Tony Gula came over, Timmy Corville. We all got together in the studio and recorded it in probably 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And my good friend Donnie Bolden sang the song. And I think a couple of radio stations played it. But sometimes songs come quickly like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's work. Sometimes I'll write a verse and a chorus. And it may take me a long time for that second verse to come around, or a bridge.
You see it laying down, you go, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you look at my phone, man, I've probably got voice memos with like 1,000 memos in there of little snippets of songs that I plan on going back to work on.
Yeah, that sounds like.
But the song I wrote that after the shooting is called City Strong.
Mm-hmm.
City Strong. And so we got some local radio play, and it's actually on YouTube. And it's on iTunes, so if you want to check it out, you can check it out. City Strong on iTunes.
We'll put it on the show.
Yeah.
I'll stick it in there and check it out. So I noticed you brought another one of my favorite local singers.
Well, Carrie Campbell, a longtime friend of mine, great songwriter. We've written together for years and years and years. She's now in Boston.
Yeah.
And so this is a record we did called Declaration. I wrote the title of that record, and wrote several on here. She wrote several on here. I think we might have co-wrote a couple songs on that record. It's such a great record. We had a great time doing it, and she's such a great talent.
I had an old computer of mine that I thought was kind of gone, and when in the move, I thought I lost it, and then I came across it a few weeks ago, and I was able to take the hard drive out and recover. When I worked in the media department with you guys over there, we'd record all the songs or whatnot.
Yes.
And Richard would send them out and I found all of those songs.
Oh, did you? That's awesome.
And I was blown away. And because I was just talking about it days prior to that,
Mm-hmm.
saying, man, I wish I had all those old Crossroads songs. Because some of the originals, and you talk about Tony Gula, and I think you and I talked about this one time. One of the first times I ever heard Washed by the Water was at Crossroads, and Tony Gula was doing it.
Yeah.
And we recorded it.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was the first time I heard it. So I got so used to hearing that version of it.
Yeah.
And one day I'm riding down the road and I hear the original come on the song, and I was like, what is that? Somebody remade that song, What I always talk about, man, I wish I had those tunes, And I would hit Richard up every now and then. He's like, oh, I have them somewhere, kind of thing, but we'd never get them. But it was really cool, and there's some songs, Carrie sung that I really liked, Voice of a Savior, I think was one.
Yeah.
And she did a good version of that one.
Yeah, man. All those guys are just amazing, talented. It's been such a joy to work with such greatly talented people over the years.
Through the years, man, you've had some incredible musicians.
I really have.
Incredible musicians.
World class.
Yeah.
Scott Bernard worked with us for years, and he's now playing with Kenny Loggins. And man, we've had, to me, Mike Birch on drums or Timmy Corville on drums just doesn't get better.
Yeah.
Those guys are amazing.
Yeah.
So to have that level of talent to work with is just fun. Old songs, they can play anything. Anything you throw at them, hey, try this. Okay, boom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to swap keys. We're going to drop this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, we did a song once on this record right here. And what song was it? I'm not remembering what song it was, but I recorded the drums on that song probably 5 times. Because I just was not happy with, what we were playing on this section or that section. It just wasn't fitting right to me. So we finally got it right after the 5th try, I think. So, it's a process. The creative process is fun, but it can be tedious sometimes.
It can be draining.
Yeah, very much so.
Really draining, yeah. No.
But I'm a perfectionist, I'm just not going to let it go until it's like I want it. There's an old quote, I think it's Da Vinci, the artist Da Vinci. He says, art is never finished, only abandoned.
Yeah.
And so at some point, you got to let it go.
Yeah.
And
So
I think when I was producing when I was younger,
Mhm.
I had a tendency to overproduce.
Yeah.
And so now, sometimes you got to let stuff breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes a rest in a moment is the most important thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I used to do the same thing.
Yeah.
I would so picky about something. I would want to. We had a record that we recorded in 1991.
Right.
1991. And it just sat on the shelf for years until like 2015, when our old singer hit me up on Facebook one day and he's like, "Dude, did you ever do anything with that record we did? Man, can I get a copy of it? The
Right.
tape I had was worn out a long time ago." So I dug through stuff and found the original ADAT mix down, and I said,
ADAT.
no ADAT and DAT mixed down. So I took him through it out there on iTunes and put it out and downloaded it, sent him copies of it, and it was pretty interesting. We got a lot of plays on
That's cool.
on SoundCloud, and the funny thing was, some college station had picked it up and was playing one or two of the songs.
Right.
Well, they called and asked if we wanted to do an interview, a phone interview. And I laughed. At first, I thought it was one of my buddies playing a joke.
Right.
So I just hung up on them. But they called back 2 more times, and they said, I said, "Yeah, right. Who is this?" Blah, blah, blah. Going into that whole, right, it's no joke. So I was like, "Yeah, okay, whatever, that's fine." So, they called back again, scheduled a time, and we started doing this phone interview. And into it, part of it, the guy asked me, he goes, "Well, man, y'all doing any shows? Y'all out on tour or anything?" I just bust out laughing. He goes, "What's funny?" I said, "Man, we're a bunch of old, fat, gray-haired guys now, man. That record was recorded in 1991, man, and they didn't even know that.
Wow.
They had no clue, I was like, "Really serious? Well, man, y'all should come over here and play a show." And, there was a festival or something going on. And I laughed. I was like, "Man, it would take us a year just playing before we're in shape."
That's so funny.
And I said, "I can't even play half that stuff."
What's
anymore.
interesting is, it's fun to hear styles come back around. Like, in modern pop, there's so much 80s injected in that now.
Mm-hmm.
If you listen to Bruno Mars, other artists like that are just coming out. I mean, the funk stuff is just right from the 70s. Some 80s stuff in there too. It's just fun to listen to. The horn stuff that's coming back. As a horn player, I can appreciate that.
You and I grew up in that era where you had real musicians, and you had,
Absolutely.
that was the whole, I call it the creative period,
Yeah.
Or boom in that whole thing, and kind of dipped off a little bit going into the 80s.
The coolest thing about the 70s is that artists could be artists.
Yeah.
And you got like 12 and 15-minute songs.
Yeah.
Because, they were just going to do their thing.
And people liked them and listened to them.
Absolutely.
It wasn't until it became a business
Yeah.
that, things really started to change. You started getting your 3-minute formulas.
Right.
And chorus first,
Yeah,
second verse
cookie cutter music. Yeah.
type thing when people started making money off of it. That's when it kind of went down.
My challenge musically doing worship music has been, to tell some old truths, biblical truths, things of that nature in a new, fresh way.
Yeah.
To me, writing worship, just lyrically, is very difficult. It's probably the most difficult thing you can do because you're trying to be fresh with something that's been told 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge. Musically, worship, if you listen to worship today, chord-wise, it's very simple. But if you think about it, I liken this to cinema back in the 70s. If you look at what they can do with cinema today versus what they could do in the 70s, it's just drastically different.
Yeah.
And so musically, where the 70s music was very technical chord-wise, today it's pretty simple. Even pop music, worship music, chord-wise, it's very, very simple. But the amazing thing comes from the technology and what you can do with arrangements. Really, today, anything you can hear in your head, you can make, you can put down. So that's what's new and fresh. And, where, like you mentioned, sometimes you miss the legitimacy of the musicianship.
Yeah.
You have to appreciate the artistry behind what's being produced, because it can be pretty amazing from a technical standpoint.
It's awesome. And nothing I think beats just listen to, you can listen to a record of a jazz trio, but you go sit in the room with them,
Yeah.
right there, and there's nothing that replaces that.
No.
But
I've done that. Richard Gaspar plays upright bass.
Yeah.
And so we did this Father's Day song last year. I took a Michael Bublé song.
Yeah.
And I rewrote the lyrics, and we did it live, and it was so much fun. This little jazz quartet thing with trumpet.
Mm-hmm.
And so I enjoy that. I'd love to do another smooth jazz record one day.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
I was glad to see the Christian music evolve through the years. I hate to use that word.
No doubt.
But, because when I was young and people would try and get us to listen to Christian music, and it was like...
It was atrocious.
It was horrible. It's terrible, and
Completely.
you hate to see it. And it wasn't the stories or what was being said. It was just humdrum, just... It wasn't music to me.
No, it was
horrible. Not music. And I remember a friend of mine coming over, Tim Jagno, and giving me and David Jagno, a Striper.
Oh, Striper.
Check out Striper.
Yellow and Black Attack.
Yeah. And that was pretty, in that era, that was pretty cool, But I think part of, I think those guys actually in the mainstream were part of the shift a little bit,
Yep.
They weren't perfect, but they were kind of part of that.
You had several artists.
Shift.
You had, Petra, the Michael W. Smiths of the world, Stephen Curtis Chapman, that kind of really revolutionized Christian music and brought it kind of a more mainstream sound.
Yeah.
More pleasant sound.
Pleasant. True melody.
Yeah.
And harmony.
And great lyrics,
Yeah, great lyrics. I know some of that, some of those worship songs that are just, I say stand the test of time.
They really have. Yep.
You never get tired of hearing them. It's really great. Any upcoming events or anything? Promotions of the record or?
We did some promotion on the record. I'm really in the mode right now of writing and recording.
Mm-hmm.
So not much in the way of getting out and playing, but we have some desires to get out and do some live stuff. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Nothing lined up, huh?
Nothing right now. No.
I'll have to get some people I know on that. That's good. Any shout outs to anybody?
Man, I'd like to shout out
Tony
to
Gula.
Tony Gula, Timmy Corville, all my buddies, Donnie Bolden, Corinne Hawthorne, all my buddies that have recorded with me over the years.
Yeah.
And, man, I love my team at Crossroads. Those guys are amazing musicians, amazing friends, just dedicated and loyal.
Yeah.
And, it's been fun being there for that long.
Oh, that's a good run, man.
There's an old saying, talent attracts talent.
Mm-hmm.
And we've always had such great talent at Crossroads. And I think it's because we set the bar high and we keep it that way. And talented people want to play with talented people.
Yeah.
So it's been fun for me as a worship leader, music director, to be able to say, hey, this is what we're doing, and know that when we get there, it's going to be, everybody's going to be on time, it's going to be ready, everybody's going to be ready to play, and there's no lowest common denominator that's dragging everyone down.
Yeah.
Which, they say you're only as strong as your weakest link. It's really true.
Yeah, it is.
So.
It is. Try it out.
And it's, I can remember back in the day when, a click track wasn't part of any equation.
No.
Back in the 70s and 80s, 90s, you didn't play with a click track. You just didn't do it. Yeah, that's right. And so today, with the more modern music and running tracks and things of that nature, we use a click. But it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
So outside of Crossroads and the studio and home life, hi, Miss Peggy. Thanks for letting me come. Who is Coy Watson? What does Coy Watson like to do?
Well, I have a business. I run a business. I'm a full-time financial advisor. And I've been a financial advisor for almost 19 years. So, that's kind of the full-time job, so to speak. It's been neat because I've been able to be a music director, delegate most of the responsibilities, show up and really do the fun stuff, and really be bivocational my entire career. So, Coy Watson is a lot of things. I've had music degree, a nursing degree, now financial advisor. So I've been a lot of things and done a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, music is the passion. It's
Yeah.
at the core of who I am. It'll always be at the core of who I am.
Yeah.
And I'll always, I think, on my deathbed, be writing the next song
Yeah.
and trying to get in the studio. So
That's awesome. I want to pay you a compliment while I have you here. I was having this conversation with a couple of guys actually last night, over the last couple of weeks. I was talking about trying to get you over here, and I always said, there's been numerous churches I've been involved in and been around, and I do Personas, works audio installs for churches and whatnot, or anybody, but I've done a lot of work in churches, and I would go and people would involve me a little bit and find out I played, and like, well, man, you should play with us. I'm like, yeah, okay, but a lot of guys I've seen around, and it's no slant on anybody. Sorry, it's just my friend. Proud of him. But,
thanks, man. Thank you.
But anyway, I spoke to your leadership in that role and how you had a gift for involving people. With not being overbearing or or just dismissing people. If somebody walked up and said, "Hey, Coy, I'd like to get into music," oh, well, okay, man, come and try out, hang out, play with us, and let's try and get you in the schedule. I never heard you turn anybody away, or even if you had always heard, "Hey, that guy over there plays, man, you should go talk to him." You would always go out of your way to approach that guy and say, "Hey, man, I heard you play. You should come and play with." You were more inclusive.
I try to be.
Like, these are my guys, and and I'm not going outside of Timmy and Richard and all these guys. They're going. No, it was like, well, no, let's involve.
Well, because that's how I started. Somebody involved me when I was, I was a little lost kid, who was just not living the way I was supposed to live, and was a musician. Man, I could remember. I had an uncle. I probably shouldn't tell this story, but I had an uncle who I was 15 years old.
Dirt alert.
Yeah. And, they found out they needed a piano player. So he called me and said, "Hey, this church I'm going to, it was in New Iberia, needs a piano player. Would you come and help them out?" And so it was a full gospel church. And if you don't know what a full gospel church is, those people get a little ruckus sometimes. They're very charismatic. And, here I am, this little... I wasn't a drug addict, but I was definitely on drugs. And, piano player showing up at 15 years old. So I would go out, first thing I asked them is, "Do you guys pay? What do you pay?" Yeah. So it was a paid gig for me. So I would go and, get stoned on Friday and Saturday and show up, lit up on Sunday morning playing piano at this full gospel church. And, began to watch these people worship. And just began to get convicted, about how I'm living and what am I doing at this church playing for these people, And so, Holy Spirit, God was even at that moment talking to me about, this is the way you're living is a dead end road. You're going to hurt yourself, and this is the direction I want you to go with your life. And so it was little things like that, where I started playing in church when I was 15. And really didn't even understand what my calling was going to be. But that was God putting me in a place to try to understand my calling. Yeah. And where he was going to take me with that. Yeah. And it's been a great journey, man. I've done some amazing things in church music and gospel music and Christian pop. And then got to work with some amazing people. You're talking about being inclusive. I've done so many auditions with musicians. Probably the hardest part of my job was, being honest with people about their level of talent and what they needed to do to improve if they wanted to be on a stage, using their gift. And those conversations were difficult, but I was always honest and frank. And there was one in particular that I'm remembering. Her name's Priscilla. Priscilla came to me in audition, and tall blonde, had a decent voice, but had some issues with range and with a pitch here and there. And so, I gave her some constructive criticism, told her what she did right, what she did wrong, and told her, "Listen, I want you to go get lessons, and I want you a year or two from now to come back and re-audition." Now, most people, when I say that, think that I'm just, he's just throwing me off.
Yeah.
But she took me serious, and she went and she got lessons. Oh my God, she came back like a year and a half later, a completely different vocalist.
Yeah.
I mean, and we used her for years at Crossroads Church, and she's done some amazing things. Just an amazing voice. But, you know, she had raw talent. She just wasn't using her instrument correctly.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, I appreciate you when I was there, always reaching out to me and trying to involve me. And always in the back of my mind in those situations, I was like, man, I hope this guy didn't think I'm just blowing him off or, you know, that kind of thing. Because I was really wanting to play and be more involved, you know, but there was a lot of other things going on, you know, in life outside of that were stopping me from being more involved. But I really wanted to, and I appreciate you hounding me and staying on me, asking to come and
sure,
play
man,
and
absolutely.
One memorable night I had, it was fun. It wasn't a big deal. We got up and when we opened the first Jolie.
Oh yeah.
What was her name? God, a lady that came and played. I cannot believe.
Carrie Campbell.
No, Carrie was with us. But we opened for.
It was I'm not remembering her name.
Woods. Aisha Woods.
Aisha Woods. Okay, well, that's a long time ago.
Yeah. But we played together at night. I played acoustic with you guys, and
I vaguely remember that.
We played a few songs, and then that was, you know, and I remember I actually borrowed your acoustic guitar. I didn't have one at the time. And
my Taylor.
Yeah, and I was like, I remember sitting at home, you know, being a little bit. That was the first time I was ever really nervous playing music because I was trying to learn these songs. I was like, man, I don't want to get up here and screw up. This guy's asked me to come and play, you know. But it went over well, you know. I remember Carrie not being particularly happy with some of my chord choices. Get over.
Oh, really? Get over, Carrie.
Well, I have my own unique style, and when I would hear things, you know, I'm the type of guy, kind of like you, though. I would hear a song, and you know, you go, well, you know, it sounds cool if you played this melodic chord instead of that.
Make it a ninth or a seventh or something.
Yeah, you know, just put a little in.
And she's like, "What is that?"
Well, she was. I remember she was thrown off a little bit when we were rehearsing, and I think she said something to you, and you turned, and you were like, "Well, man, I think that's kind of cool. I like that." And you came over, kind of like, "Yeah, you know." I was like, "Oh, if Coy likes it, I don't care." But I had a lot of fun. I wanted to be more involved then, but I just, you know, life was in the way at the time.
Yeah.
You know?
What year was that? My
That was a long time ago. I actually have a picture from the back of the old church.
That was in the old building.
Yeah, that was in the old building before. That was even before we thought about building a new church, or it was even talked about.
Man, we used to do 5 services a week.
Oh yeah.
In that building.
Mm-hmm.
Just to accommodate.
Oh yeah.
We were so glad we could get rid of that Saturday service.
Yeah.
We got the new
I always
building.
loved the Saturday service. I've fussed with Pastor
You made me
Jeff
feel
at the
Catholic
time.
going on Saturday.
I loved it, you know, and I was mad at him when he stopped. I fussed at him about it.
I didn't.
Yeah. Well, I remember him telling me, you know, well, man, you know, it just takes so much. And I was like, well, man, we got a lot of people here. You know, delegate, you know. But it was funny. But yeah, that first one, I think that was the very first Jolie that Daphne had put on, or maybe the second one with Aisha Woods playing at it.
We've had some great talent in, man. It's been fun to play with some of those artists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, it was a good time. It was a really good time. But anyway, I'm gonna let you get out of here.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate you stopping in.
Glad I could be here.
We're gonna go back. We're gonna go out to your studio and do some stuff.
We need to. Be fun.
We'll throw the camera up and we'll write a song and capture the whole process.
That would be fun. Yeah.
I got a ton back in there. Maybe I can bring you my stack and you can help.
Just spontaneous. We'll just like write something off the cuff. That'd be fun.
We'll write a theme song for the show.
Oh, there you go.
We've been using horses in the opening clip, but we'll do something. We'll write it out. But anyway, it's been great visiting with Coy. Y'all check him out. Y'all, we're gonna put Nation up. I'm going to take pictures of this. We'll have them flying up here as usual. You'll see pictures all around, that kind of funny stuff. But holler at us. Until next time, y'all hang out like a hare and a biscuit. Give a hoot and holler to Coot and Have a great day.
Peace, y'all.